This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders who are designing our future. Well, I'm Joe Pardavila, and today I'm going to spend some time with Jonathan Hung, the author of the new book, Your Emergency Contact. In it, Jonathan writes about why trust, not capital, defines long-term success in venture. Drawing from decades of investing in more than 250 companies, he argues that relationships matter more than returns, and character matters more than charisma. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Good, Joe. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And I think it's fitting that we start our conversation talking about dads, because reading the book, obviously you dedicated the book to your dad, very important figure in your life. And so for me, my dad was more of the lead by example dad. Like my mom was the disciplinarian. My dad was the guy who he led by example. Like we learned about work ethic and being on time and treating people right from my dad. What was that like for you? Was your dad the disciplinarian? Was he the lead by example guy? Tell me about your upbringing with your old man.
I would say I probably spent more time with my mom growing up than my dad, because as a business person, he had to just make sure to be out there, and there were certain times of the year where he had to travel to China and he was gone. I couldn't put a number to it. It didn't seem like I could say like, oh yeah, a third of the time he was gone, but it seemed like a good amount. And, he's go on all these business trips, and yeah, it was me and my mom. And you just always kind of like, yeah, your dad had to go work. Uh, for me, my dad was definitely, he was both carrot and stick, especially with his employees, right? He was very tough. It's like, oh, it's 9:01. Weren't you supposed to be here at 9, And it was just like that kind of like, hard ass, but that's what he was taught. That's what he knew. Growing up, like coming from, humble beginnings, really coming to this country as an immigrant, not having anything, and growing and building something amazing.
And where did you learn about the relationship and trust factor that kind of guides your book? Was that from dad?
Partly, yes. Also, just my own experiences. Unfortunately, I always tell people I've had some scumbag partnerships, complete scumbags, and I use that word in all its sense, right? Like I could say, like, it's okay if I always said something like in the book, like you could be an a-hole, but at least I know that's who you are. And it comes across and you're not pretending to be somebody you're not. And that's fair. But like scumbag is a person who's like telling you, Joe, you're wonderful, as they're sticking a shiv in your back. It's just like, what kind of person? I don't even know how people learn that.
Right.
Like you would think like that golden rule is like treat others how you want to be treated. But no, people are just saying and doing whatever they want just to make a dollar, which is like, I find sad. Like someone like my father, he taught me something important along the lines of, well, it is a small world. It really is. And especially in our community where we were doing contract manufacturing. Look, you can make a couple of dollars on one deal, but is it really worth it to screw over a relationship in the long run? And things like that made sense, right? And it wasn't necessarily the same as venture, but business wise, it made sense to me. It's like, in fact, I had the other day, someone came out to me and said like, oh, one of your ex-partners was saying such horrible things about you. And I'm like, really? But then it turned out that this person, she was completely horrible to me. And I'm like, well then, gee, I wonder. Like it's like like you never met me, how would you know anything about me? You just hearing it with somebody else, and it's just so funny. And that's why I tell people like trust, whether it's venture capital or anything, does drive success.
And one of the things for outsiders outside of the world of venture capital, I think there's that cliched like bad apple that you mentioned. There's the scumbags. But another thing too is like that when outsiders see with venture capital is the very much like the spaghetti on the wall industry, like throw as much against it, and what sticks lands. Like that's sort of been the outsider's point of view about venture. Like, put your eggs in a lot of baskets, and eventually one of those two baskets will become valuable. Is giving the insider's point of view, is that accurate, or again, is that more like an outsider's point of view?
Look, I go to the casino. If I spend $1 million, will I make $1 million at the casino? Like you could be going down a hole that's never going to stop. And I think that's wrong to think like, oh, it's just luck. It's like, oh, you're just spraying and praying. And I'm like, no, I mean, half of success is being prepared, knowing what you're doing. The other half, there is some luck to it. Absolutely. What if I went to this meeting and I met the founder of this unicorn company, right? And it was just that moment. It was the only time in my life I could have met that person. Or I said no. Like I always tell that story how I said no to Robin Hood, and it's just like, what if I took the extra that step of actually talking to Vlad, and maybe that would have changed my whole experience. Like a lot of us think we know what we're doing, and I want people to know that we don't. that you do need an emergency contact, that you need to go talk to people. Everyone thinks their thoughts are so wonderful and great, and you have confidence. Like, at the end of the day, you have to be your own judge. You have to take the good and the bad. The buck stops here. But I would take some advice. I mean, I would go out there and learn more, get educated, find people who've done it before and see what's right or wrong instead of make the same mistakes everyone else has done and then find new mistakes to make. That's okay. Right. You see things in a different light. Like you understand this is how you're supposed to raise money. And it's a little trial by error. I agree with that. But that at a certain stage of your life, you're going to have to know, like, oh, no, well, I would never do that again. Like, would you just keep throwing things on the wall after years of being a mentor? That makes no sense. You wouldn't have a better process? Of course you would.
And a big part of what you talk about too is the idea of fear and the being open to making mistakes. And you invest in hundreds of companies.
Yeah.
I know this may be a tough one to answer, but how many of those decisions of those 250 plus were they fear based?
Fear as in like I was scared not to do it,
Yeah.
or it wasn't scared that I wasn't gonna do it. It was more like, oh man, such it's like a great opportunity. And like, gosh, I mean, I wish I did it based on like things I passed on before that turned out to be huge successes, right? And I was just like, oh, well, what if this is the same thing? And it's like it's hard for lightning strike twice, but there's something about I break it down to four factors. One is like the team. I score that really heavily. I look at the business, number two, and then I look at three, the investment terms, like who's around the cap table as well. And four, there's alignment. And it could be alignment with, my business partners at Entrepreneur Media, or it could be alignment with myself. It's how can I help? I always tell people I can't help with cancer research. I can't help you, necessarily with any specific science or shooting rockets to space. But if I understand how like our alignment can help, whether it's my contacts in other general partners I know, or our LPs have a certain type of business or industry that makes sense to you to make that introduction, why not?
Mhm. And so a big part of the book is relationships over returns.
Mhm.
And I was curious because I was very like, and I love your honest take on this. Have you ever chosen the wrong founder because you like them too much? You talked about your first thing is like the team. Have you ever been sucked into the gravitas, this aura that founders give off that you were like, man, if I wasn't, it's almost like love at first sight. You ignore all the red flags. Was there one that stands out?
I wouldn't say red flags. It just seemed like, and I wouldn't say it's too good to be true. It's just that you base your judgment on this particular moment in time. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to find who he or she is. Right? When tragedy hits, or, it's not everything's perfect, and how he or she acts in those moments matter. And it's also like not just like, oh, my big life events or big hurdles that you see. It's literally following up. Like I send my founders every quarter, hey, can you update me what's going on? The simple sheet. And the people who fill it out, great, wonderful. Like I'll give you my time. Because I think that's what I always tell everybody. Joe, anybody listening to this, we have the same 24 hours in a day. We don't have that Hermione time machine to go back and take two classes at once, all right? Or Back to the Future with Marty McFly. We have the same 24 hours in a day. So why are some people more successful than others with their same time? Because like effort, you can't help. That's on you and the individual. But time, that's finite. Like we have the same minutes in a day. So how you spend it matters. And so when you say about character, it's like, look, in that moment, they could have convinced me, but as I tell people, you sold me on your sizzle. Now the steak has to taste good.
Yeah. And on the subject of red flags, were there some that you might ignore in the past because your ego, for lack of a better word, really wanted to be part of the deal? Like there was like it looked like it had those four pillars, but maybe one of them was kind of shaky. But you look past because you're like, oh man, I feel like I can make this one happen.
Well, it's because like it's not one. It's like I'm not trying to do like chapter two of my book is like One Sigma Confidence, right? And I wrote articles about this, and it's like I'm not thinking you're going to be perfect. I just want you to be acceptable. Like I score each one of those categories 1 to 4, and no one can have a one. If you have a one in any category, why? That's like a waste. Like there's no point because my goal is to get 12 out of 16 points. I think it's very rare to get 16 out of 16. I don't think anything is perfect in life, but you never know. Sometimes like I would hope the other venture capitalists or hedge fund people, when they make their decisions, that they have Six Sigma confidence, right? Because I invest in other people. But for pre-seed seed investing, I just got to get to 70%. And in my case, 75% confidence in a decision. That's why it's 12 out of 16. That's three-fourths. And you could be, sometimes not a great team. But you know what? I could help you hire the right person. If you're not the right salesperson or you don't have the right technical person, like, hey, we could go find that for you. But if you have a great business and the investment terms are correct and there's alignment, that could, we can mitigate that aspect of the team. But at the end of the day, you have to be the right CEO at that moment. Because if you're not, there's no point. If you're a one CEO, forget it.
I want to circle back to that little story you shared about like someone like bad mouthing you behind your back.
Well,
And did you ever feel like, looking back, that you were, I mean, not in this case that you mentioned, but that you were a bad business partner and then didn't realize it till after, the smoke has settled and all that jazz? Where there's some moments you're like, oh, damn, I was the problem.
you know, I would take accountability sometimes, like, hey, like, did I give enough effort, here and there? But here's the thing about me, Joe, like, you're not going to catch me a lie. I don't overpromise and underdeliver. And that's the thing. I think people get hurt because they think like, oh my God, I thought this person was going to do everything else for me. And I can't believe they didn't give me 120% effort or something. And I think that's a cop out. That means like you relied on somebody where you should have been just as liable as well. And so I don't ever tell people, I always tell people this, whether I'm a business partner or I was, looking for a job for somebody, I'm going to always leave you in a better place than I found you. That's my thoughts. And so if somehow you're worse off because you know me, then is it 100% because of me? Unless like I truly screwed you over, then like, hey, I got plenty of lawyers, let's go. I got D&O insurance and haven't used it, knock on wood, right? I mean, let's really see, right? Because you have actual receipts. Like if I really am that bad, hey, call the FBI, call the police.
That's great. Going back to how you focus in on finding the right founder that fits you. How do you separate the confidence from delusion in founders? Because I think all, and you probably agree, this, all founders have to have some level of confidence. Otherwise, you're not going to write a large check to if they're
You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. If you're just a 9 to 5 guy, that's it. Like I think you better have confidence if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
so how do you separate the confident from the delusional?
Once again, it goes back to what I just said. Over promising and under delivering. Like if you can hit close to the target, that means you're getting something, right? But if you're not even in the same arena, what do we talk about? I'm going to catch 1,000 fishes, but you weren't even in the right pond to begin with. What are you talking about? Like that, it's like you have to show actions with your words. Anybody could say anything, right? I always tell people like I could say, Joe, I love you. We just met today. I love you, buddy. It's like you hear that all the time. But you hear people say like, Joe, I trust you. I'm not going to say that. I don't know you well enough, Joe, to say I trust you. But love gets thrown around so easily. And it's just like, I want to make sure that I have that trust with my founders.
Mm. And so when you walk into a meeting with a founder now, as opposed to when you were 28,
Mhm.
what are you listening to now that you would have probably missed at 28? Were there some things that early on in your career that you almost like didn't even think about, but now you're even more focused on?
It's just the experience, right? You get better at this. There's one part of the book where I talk about like, you live your life in quarters, right? The first 2 quarters of my life, I was just learning, really just learning. I'm 43 now, and in my third quarter, I'm not doing this for experience. This is not an internship. This is what I do for a career, and I've been successful at it, and I made money for it, and I'm making money for others right now. That's the real of it all. But from my perspective, it's just like, oh, I think one of the biggest things I thought, like, wow, that actually sounds great. Not thinking like, well, 8 other people are doing it. Like if we did a simple Google search and now maybe a chat GPT search or Anthropic search, like, oh, okay. And so it's like, how are you attacking this market to get there? Because I think we think here, the grand scheme of things, but like, let's go here. Let's say, look, I'm giving you a certain amount of money from going to your pre-seed to your seed to your series A. Let's focus on this time, right? Don't talk about like, oh, one day I'm going to be as big as Steve Jobs or, Elon Musk. That just like, that I don't care for. That doesn't like excite me at all. Cause like I've met plenty of billionaires. Met plenty of successful people. you know, and they come across as not they're confident, but not arrogant. They're not gonna say things that they actually don't have any thoughts or have given it some clarity of why they think this way.
Mm. You wrote that this is the book you needed 20 years ago. But what advice that you've come up with now that you think like younger you would have been like, "Oh man, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing." Like, is there something that you've come upon later in life that as a younger person you probably would not have embraced?
Um, I think about where I was so confident in a decision, right? And it's like, yes, this is, but not thinking about the outcome or the duration and the time that it took. And looking back at it now, it's just like, oh, you know what? I totally get it. Now I have the experience and I know I could tell my founders and give sound advice. It's so funny to me. I have associates who are in their 20s, right? And we talk about, and I'm just like, I have founders ask them a question because they have the title and they work with me or they work for me or and like you think like someone asking and thinking they have some sort of authority, but it's just because they're part of a great VC firm or part of an organization doesn't mean that they have the experience. You have to actually hear it. Like people know I'm not full of myself because I'm not trying to think of a way to like, I'm media trained where I have to know exactly what to say. Now, look, I'm not gonna say anything controversial. I think I'm better than that. But I'm gonna come across and trying to tell you what I actually want to hear. And that's the truth. And for some of these like, younger generation kids, what I was, it was just like, oh, I think I know. I know, and like comes across with because such conviction. And I'm like, well, do you have to pay the bill? Do you have to be responsible for what that person because that person might take what you just said and run with it. And are you gonna like own it and take responsibility? A lot of people, like I said, can say I love you, but they don't can you trust yourself to take the blame? To say, you know what? And it's just like, oh, whoops, it guess it go. Well, it's okay. I mean, like, wow, so
Yeah.
nonchalant, but you're so confident in what you were saying. Like, can you own taking responsibility?
It's funny what like title and the position of your office does to your head because I remember an old mentor of mine said to me, the corner office, once that person steps in the corner office, they feel like they can provide more input than they really can. Like the corner office guy was probably like an old sales guy, but now he runs the company, but he doesn't know anything about creative. But now that he's in the corner office, he feels like he could weigh in on creative. And so I think it's a lot of that self awareness and intentionality and like knowing what you're saying comes from experience or from learned experience. The age is irrelevant if maybe you put in the time studying. But how do you tell your younger folks, be like, hey, just because you have the title doesn't mean you are the all knowing Oz?
Yeah, I mean, it's because they haven't sat in the seat. It's like we can all criticize the president, but until you've actually sat in that seat to make these life or death decisions, to know that you can't make everyone happy. You can't. It's just impossible that you have to take the good, but especially the bad. Like I'm the type of person where it's like, I definitely think I'm an optimist when it comes to venture capital. Because hey, if I didn't, like, what am I doing? What am I dedicating my life into such risky asset class? But at the same time, I've definitely become more like I don't want to say pessimist, but more like not so open to everything because I've seen it. And I said, well, this is what's right or wrong. Like I had a great GP friend tell me one time, you know what? I invest in people where like if I keep asking them questions and they have really good thoughtful responses, doesn't mean that they're right. Not that they have it, they haven't proven it, but they think, oh, that's an interesting way. And then once I'm exhausted, it's like, you know what? Let's give this person a chance. Because clearly this person knows more than me. And so that's what I want to see that like if you're just counting on me to be everything to you as a mentor or as an investor, then you probably shouldn't be the CEO or a founder of a company because I'm counting on you. You're the day-to-day person.
Yeah. Tell me about, we've talked about trust a bunch in this conversation, but I'm curious because sometimes trust can be broken for various reasons, for nefarious reasons, accidentally. Um, how do you know when trust has been broken beyond repair? Like you maybe someone breaks the trust chain that you have, Jonathan, but it's like, I'll give him a shot because in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that bad. How do you know that it's you can't go back once someone has made a move that has broken that trust chain.
Look, you can forgive, but you can't forget. That's it. It's simple. It's just like I probably give everyone one chance, you know, and one chance by me, like I'm still willing to talk to you after,
Yeah.
if you screwed up or you said something you shouldn't have, but there's no like second chances. It's
Mm.
like shame on me then, right? That's that old
Right.
thing. It's
Yeah.
like that's it. And so it's just like you trying to act like, oh, you're a real partner and friend, and then all of a sudden I still catch you again saying these horrible things. So like, why would that change the third time, the second time? Like, why? Like why would that be different? It's just like you're just saying stuff. You're just using lip service because you got caught. You got caught. But you don't really mean it. You don't really mean it. I had one partner seriously and in front of everybody. I'm just like saying like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know what I was thinking." He's like, "No, we knew exactly what you're doing because we figured out the truth. You thought you could triangulate and lie to put two sides of a party, thinking we would never talk, and it's just like, hey, we figured it out, and you made promises you could not keep." And so you weren't just lying to me, you're lying to everybody else to keep the lie going. And I'm just like, yeah, good luck. You're full of it. And so goodbye. Good luck. Bye.
And so since you've been doing this for a while, hundreds of times, um, and we talked at the top about like these some of these don't work out, unfortunately. What do you do? How do you internalize the failures? Is it one of those things where do you have like that hockey goalie mentality? It's in the net. There's nothing I could do. Do you do like the 12-hour postmortem? Do you do the self-flagellation, beating yourself up? Like, how do you handle when things go wrong in venture?
I think you take accountability first and foremost that what could I have done better, and smarter and just think because sometimes I've been also a founder, not just an investor. And, I put my money where my mouth is just like I do for this current fund. I put my own money in. For the two startups I co-founded and I was a leader at, I think we raised both 2 million at both opportunities. The first one I put over 1.3 million of my money. And the second one I put like 800, 900,000. So good significant chunks. So I had as much to lose as anybody. And I felt bad with the other people that I got involved, right? But I could say that, hey, I gave it my all. It wasn't because, I stole money or I lied. That's a little different. But we did everything we could. And unfortunately, it just wasn't at the right time or the opportunity, and it didn't work out. And then hopefully, if I ever have the guts to do this again, or if I find another founders, which I always do all the time, I could use that experience and share and be better at it. I'm helping a couple of my companies now doing business development work and just saying like this is what was not happening, right? And it's just like, you could be your viral moment right away, right? But to continuously do that, it's just hard, right? You're not expected to triple your revenue every year. That doesn't happen, but you have to get a sustainable business model, the right revenue model to figure out how you're going to grow into and how raising money. That's a skill in itself. But raising money doesn't mean guaranteeing success. At the end of the day, you still have to have a great product, great service, great business that could stand on its own 2 feet.
It, I often joke that entrepreneurs are psychopaths, but serial entrepreneurs should be committed just because of why they would put themselves to do this over and over again. And earlier you mentioned the fact that when someone breaks your trust, you give them at least one chance, right? Have you given founders multiple opportunities that maybe one of their startups failed, and you give them another chance down the road? Has that happened where you've
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
founder like now? What makes you want to work with that founder the second or third time if there was a failure earlier?
Like I said, failure doesn't mean that they lied, that they weren't trustworthy, right? That it was just something that it didn't work out. And, you could be at the wrong timing of everything. That's just what it is. Like I have friends who are just like, hey, why wasn't Friendster better than Facebook, right? They're both social media, and it was just the bad timing or a certain business deal wasn't worked out properly. The board was on this person's case. It happens, unfortunate or not, there is a little luck, as I said. to everything in life, and just being in the right place, right opportunity. So as long as I trust this person, like, hey, the outcome wasn't great, but now I think they're better, that they're in a different spot. I mean, it's funny. It's not always the best founders. They tell you like, oh, in their 20s and they're dropouts, right? Maybe it's somebody right now. Maybe this is the best time for me to be I probably shouldn't have been a founder in my 20s and 30s. Maybe now, because like being a founder doesn't mean like, oh, I have to create an AI company that's going to kill it, or a SaaS company, or a B2B, or like, CPG company. It could be that, hey, I'm starting a franchise. Now I actually know at 43 how to run a business, how to get employees in the door, how to make sure the customer's taken care of, or whatever food service or, skill set that we help, that makes you a better entrepreneur.
That's great. And so, with all these founders you work with, is there one trait that you've seen that consistently predicts long-term success? Like, is there something like,
No.
whether it's like an ability, it's something they do well that you see over and over again that makes it predictable for you?
No, I think it's people are foolish to think that it is, because everything changes. I like how some people are like, oh, I only invest in Y Combinator companies. Okay. But there's plenty of companies that have been successful without Y Combinator. Like, oh, I only invest in people who went to MIT or Stanford. Okay, there's plenty of companies that have been built outside of those two schools. Like, why would you force it? It's like, I only want to date this type of person.
Right.
So somebody amazing comes and their hair color wasn't right, you wouldn't be with them? Makes no
Yeah.
sense.
It's great. Yeah, because it's funny. I'll be honest with you, Jonathan. I think if I asked that question to other folks in VC, they'd probably have like that quip, like, that great listeners they take feedback well. To you, it doesn't matter. It's just like, listen, like every case is
We're
different.
back to my 4 pillars, right? That I was talking about. Like, each one can make it for me that this is the more important thing. Like, that's why my fund is different than most. I'm not trying to get conviction. I'm trying to give everybody the same amount of money, same amount of media coverage, and time will tell. Like, that's what it's so funny. It's like, do you give all of your founders the second check for follow up? No, you don't, because you bet on the courses that are leading, and you want to give them more fuel, more water, more resources to keep the pace. Like, you're not going to take care of portfolio company number 30 out of 35. You're just not. So why did their trade all of a sudden change? Weren't they the same person you had before? I would assume all 30 had the same traits. Why don't you care anymore?
Wow. Let's look at it, because since you mentioned the fact that you have been on the founder side and obviously the VC side for most of it, what do founders misunderstand about most investors? What are they getting wrong? We talked about the things that mistakes that VC could make wrong. What are founders getting wrong when it comes to preconceived notions of working with an investor?
Investors are, honestly, it depends what type of investor. Because investors who run VC funds, guess what? They have to find a unicorn. They have to find that 100x, 20x company. And if you're not that for them, they're not going to help. They're just not. And I tell people all the time, you don't need VC money. If you have a great company, why not get a small business loan, right? Why not look for grant money? Why not look for angel money? Why not ask people in your own circle, right? Venture capital comes with a lot of and it's funny because I am a venture capitalist, but not in the sense of like the traditional sense, where like I need you to, 3x your business year over year if you're a CPG company, or that you have to get to 1 million ARR or something for a SaaS business or B2B to get to the metrics, so that, other people will come in, that I can convince others, because that's what you're being judged on. It's like, hey, I don't like it. You don't have to get a full 1600 SAT to get into my school or my program, but certain schools require that, right? They need a certain GPA. That's just like, like ATS, right? Application tracking system, right? That's it. Like, those are the metrics before I can even talk to a human being nowadays. So it's just like, why go to that world if you're not ready to understand the metrics you need to achieve? Like, as I said, you don't need to go to Harvard. You don't need to go to these schools. That's not the only way to be successful. There's plenty of people I've met who are amazing human beings, who are amazing business, that did not have to go to the Ivy League.
Why do you think a lot of these founders have that default setting of like ideation, find investors, or go to venture cap? Is it because in the press and in the media and these success stories, most of them started with some sort of venture capital backing? Is that what it is, or is there anything else that is feeding that monster of venture capital?
social media, the victors go the spoils, right? I mean, it's just how history writes itself. But, my father came to this country with $500 a name, died a multimillionaire. Is he not successful? Like, you've raised millions of dollars and it's gone to zero. Is that considered success? You wasted investor money and didn't actually achieve an exit or an outcome that was acceptable to your partners. All my father's partners made money. I think that's success.
Now, so if someone finishes your Mercy Contact and they're still chasing money over trust, what do you think they missed as they went through the book, that they're like, yeah, I get what you're saying, Jonathan, but like, man, that money's still more tantalizing. What are they missing when they are not prioritizing trust after reading your book?
I think they don't understand that this is a team sport. That yes, there's a lot of individual successes when it comes to startups, and the face of the company, the CEO, gets all the glory, but you also have to realize they could get all the hate as well. And at the end of the day, hey, I don't think one person builds a company. There's so many people like you, even if you don't have co-founders, you had great service people, great, mentors, advisors to help you along the way. I mean, then no book would be dedicated to anybody. Why would you even dedicate books to anybody? Like, I dedicated this book to my dad because he was an important figure in my life. Have you ever had somebody not dedicate a book to anybody, Joe?
No, it's very rare.
Right? So it's like, he's like, no, I did it myself. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. And so lastly, talking about your dad, you think about him every day, you miss him deeply. He passed away at a very critical point in your life. Didn't get the chance to read this book. Tell me what you think he would have thought of your Mercy Contract.
I think the jury's still out. I still need to prove myself, right? Day in, day out. And that's who my father was. It wasn't just like you got to a goal and that's it and you're done. Like, what I do now with the book is really, look, to me, it is a marketing piece. It is to get people's attention to, like, kind of concisely tell people, like, this is what I think as an investor, right? You could write a whole blog. You could, like, write your manifesto on your website and people get it. But this is a little different. It's just like, yeah, this is forever, and I also mentioned my wife and my daughter and my mom and other people close to me that helped me along the way. And it's just, yeah, for this point in time, I hope by doing this, right, that, if it's worthy of me writing a memoir down the road in the fourth quarter of my life, that this guided me, right? And I think people don't get it, that I'm not selling this to get like, oh yeah, I'm teaching this, and this is my principles of success. No, it's that I have to still live by this day in and day out until my last dying day. And that this is what helped me more than anything get what I wanted out of life.
Read all about it in Your Mercy Contact, Why Trust Drives Venture Capital Success. His name is Jonathan. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Jonathan or other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.